You're listening to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health.
It only takes one step, twist, or crunch to know something doesn't feel right. Essentia Health's orthopedic and sports medicine team gets you back to doing what you love with commitment, resilience, intention. We're here to keep you moving forward. Visit essentiahealth.org to learn more about orthopedics and sports medicine, like nowhere else.
Hello and welcome to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health. I'm Matt Wellens, the Bulldogs hockey beat writer at the Duluth News Tribune and the Rink Live. And back with me this week is the voice of Bulldogs hockey on My Nine Sports. Welcome back, Zach.
Yeah, thanks for covering me for a couple weeks while I was out of town and otherwise busy, but glad to be back. Well,
we're glad we have you back for this one because we're both hoping to get some parenting advice from some veteran parents who I'm going to say have done pretty well based on at least from what we've known about their daughter the last 5 years here. We have the mom and dad of fifth-year senior center and co-captain Gabbie Hughes on the podcast this week. They're also among the co-founders of Sophie Squad, which in less than 2 years has really brought mental health awareness to the forefront of hockey in Minnesota. Welcome to the podcast, Miki and Terry Hughes.
Thanks for having us.
So, Gabbie, your daughter, she's been phenomenal for both of us to work with over the last 5 years here. On the ice, she's a top 5 career scorer at UMD, top 10 in goals, top 3 in assists. She's a 5-time All-WCHA honoree, something that's, thanks to the pandemic, that's not going to happen to anyone else in a long time here, if ever again. She was a top 3 finalist for the Patty Casbeer Memorial Award last season. They haven't announced top 10, at least when we're recording this or anything yet. When I list all of Gabbie's accomplishments, though, I feel like when we go back and look back at her legacy as a Bulldog or just in hockey in general, Sophie Squad jumps to the top of the list for me. And college hockey's taken notice. She's now a 2-time top 5 finalist for the Hockey Humanitarian Award. And that's an award that I think is special because it doesn't differentiate between Division I or Division III, men's or women's. It's just an honor bestowed to, as they call it, college hockey's finest citizen. As parents, how proud are you? This is the easy softball question to start it off. How proud are you of what Gabbie has done specifically off the ice in her hockey career, and especially the last few years?
I'll go first. I'm amazed. You try and do all the right things and, bring your kids up right and to have them grow into the adults that they do and see what they do with it and to see how Gabbie's just jumped into things even before Sophie Squad, just a very thankful, kind person, always nice to the kids and the fans, but then finding her passion with Sophie Squad. And I don't want to say jumping out of her shell because she's never been really super shy, but she's really just kind of attacked it on all ends and jumped in and done everything that she could with her schedule and trying to help spread the word. I'm just truly amazed and so proud. I know she says a lot. I just don't have words. I'm so proud of her.
Terry, how about you?
Well, starts from day one for me. Gabbie's a little mama's little girl, but when she was going to college, it took her, 6 months, maybe even longer. Phone call after phone call. I want to come home. I can't do this. I can't do this. I don't want to do this. So finally, I called her and I asked her one question. I said, all right, Gabbie, that's fine. I said, when you're driving home, I want you to think about when you get here, who we're going to hand your scholarship to. You want to give that to somebody? Who do you want to have that? We'll just give it away when you get home. And she goes, I'm not giving that away. And I said, well, then you're staying in Duluth. And that kind of helped her. She grew up unbelievable in a year there, 2 years. And to see her stand on the platform that she's on right now, I don't have the words to say it either, other than remarkable. How she's helped young children that walk through that door, kids in school. She's part of the Green Bandana Project. She's taken it to a different level as far as I'm concerned. She hasn't just helped us make this and put a name out there. She's a huge part of it. So proud of that kid. Fantastic.
What's been the progression for you as parents from maybe that freshman year, Terry? Because when we had Gabbie on the podcast, earlier this year, we talked to her about, it's easy to look at Gabbie Hughes as maybe a young girls hockey player, or just a young athlete, or just a young person in general, and say, Gabbie Hughes has got it all figured out. What doesn't she have going for her in her life right now? And Gabbie's response to that was, there's been ups and downs. There's still ups and downs in her life, in her hockey career, in her world as a student at UMD. And there's been ups and downs really since the start. So the progression of somebody calling you every day saying, I can't do this, I want to come home, to where she is now, that 5 years, I mean, that's what college is all about. But it really seems like, even though the ups and downs are still there, she's really learned how to manage it and become a positive influence, not just on the hockey team, but in other areas as well.
Yeah, it's just, for me, it's how she's grown up and taken off so well. Of just, for me, is how she dissects it, how she understands it. If she's in trouble now, she knows where to turn to, not just in other people, but within herself, and how to take some time out and carve some time out for herself, just to sit down and go, hey, it's going to be okay. I mean, we all have struggles. We have to face that, right? And it's just how to deal with them. And I think it's a sign of, good parenting from day one, and just all the people that has followed her, from her coaches to you guys, to everybody. It really helps out that mental health piece.
And I'll add on to that. I think that, prior even to Sophie's squad, Gabbie worked really hard to figure out how she can help herself when she would have those lows, whether it was reaching out to me or us finding the right people for her to reach out to, working with the staff at UMD. But I think in part of her growing and maturing process, part of that was learning herself inside and out. And to this day, she knows herself better than anyone, I think, knows themselves, better than I know myself. Sometimes she can dissect things and she knows why she's feeling this way, or, what's triggering that or whatever. And throughout this course, like Terry said, she's worked with folks and worked with herself to figure out coping mechanisms, or, gosh, I've felt this feeling before. What do I do this time? And then now taking that next step with Sophie's squad, being able to help advocate for others, or help others through that and learn more about themselves, or, hey, I've tried this, maybe try that. To be able to put herself out there and be vulnerable is another growth step, right, in that whole process. And so she's done a lot of it on her own, but also with the help of, like Terry said, parenting, getting her the right contacts, the staff at UMD, her friends. It's a whole big group, but the big piece is her continually working on herself, I think.
And I think for her being the ambassador of Sophie's squad and being a part of that, I've talked to her, just having that on the forefront and in her face all the time has helped her. Just loving to help people. So it's a huge piece. She's done great work.
Sophie's squad is named after Sophie Wellens, who was a hockey player that Terry, you and Gabbie coached, family that's close to all of you. She died by suicide when she was 14, 2 summers ago now. Terry, what do you remember? We've talked to Gabbie, and Gabbie's shared Sophie's story. Terry, what do you remember about Sophie, whose unfortunate death has spurred a pretty big movement here in Minnesota and in hockey?
Yeah. Wow. I have to say, this is probably the toughest platform to stand on, any platform in the country, when you're talking about children and losing their mental health battle to suicide. So it's really tough to talk about sometimes. But yeah, she was a good kid, friendly, smiley all the time. I mean, 4.0 student in school. She was on every academic piece that was in school. She was part of an orchestra since she was, like, I think 5. Just a fantastic kid. She made the room brighter. She was just a happy kid. So I think it was, a surprise to everybody, especially her parents, right? It's didn't see it coming, but she was a fantastic kid. Made everybody's day brighter, and she was great to have around. I didn't see it coming.
How did you, as a hockey family and community, go from grieving the loss of Sophie to forming, at least maybe initially, the idea of Sophie's squad?
Oh boy. Trying to remember all this. Everything happened so darn fast, but we had a practice on Monday. We're leaving for Boston on Wednesday. Both her and her sister were part of the 2 teams I was taking out there. Rachel was on the older team. Sophie was on the younger team, and they didn't come to practice on Monday. And I'm like, well, that's weird. They've never missed practice. They're an hour and a half from the doorstep to doorstep, and they still never miss practice. So I got a call from Rachel that night as I come off the rink, and I said, what's going on? You weren't at practice. yeah, it's not good. And we lost Sophie today. So the timing of it was unbelievable. We had to do a lot of things in a hurry. So social media didn't attack a young lady for what other reasons people put false information out there. And we went to Boston, and her mom asked me what she should do with Rachel. And I said, well, if she's my daughter, I said, I'm not a professional, but if she's my daughter, I said, I'm taking her to Boston. She can be with her friends and all the kids that care about her. So make a long story short, I went up to see Rachel's mom, and she made me read the suicide note. And I read that, and I just told her, there's a lot of people that care about your kid. And when we get back to Minnesota, we're going to do something about this. So I went downstairs. My daughter was there. I think her whole family was there, right, Mick? Or you weren't there?
I wasn't there. Trey wasn't there, but Colin and Gabbie were.
Colin and Gabbie were there. So I went down, and I got about 15 people together, and Gabbie stood up, and I said, we're going to do something about this when we get back to Boston. And Gabbie Hughes stands up in front of everybody, starts holding court, and says, we're going to, we've got to do something about this when we get back. And lo and behold, here we are about a year and a half later. I think we're around $280,000 that we've made so far. So
yeah, I want to add a little bit to that, Tara. So part of the stories I heard from the parents that were out there in Boston that week is too, I think you didn't mention that it was, yes, you had that conversation with Amy, but it was also ended up not being like a hockey tournament, let's go win games. It was a healing process for both the teams that were out there, all the
Correct.
Kids that were out there, for Amy, for Rachel. And there was a lot of discussion in the hotel that both teams stayed at the same hotel. And so we, of course, they all took over the lobby. And, when Terry came down and said that for Terry's summer program, Skate to Excellence, he used to have like an end of summer golf tournament just to celebrate the athletes, get the parents together, have some fun. And we would raise money, and we'd use that for scholarships for kids to play hockey that really couldn't afford it. Then we had a family member or a hockey mom who had breast cancer. So we turned it into a breast cancer awareness tournament, raised funds, gave it to the family, etc. She ended up passing away. We had a huge golf tournament, gave her money. Colin mentioned out there, hey, we should have another Skate to Excellence golf tournament, and let's do it around mental health. And that kind of sparked the ideas. And that was the real intention, really, when they came back from Boston. And I think that Boston tournament was end of July. And we had our first committee meeting. Everyone that was in Boston that was interested, we had our first committee meeting August 5th. And that's when the wheels started turning. We said, okay, we're going to turn this into something big. Everyone had passion to move forward and go, get going. And before we knew it, we had our first event on November 10th, and it spiraled into something, all these Hockey Hits Back events. That wasn't the initial, vision. It was, we're going to have a golf tournament next summer. And then there was just this need, like everyone got a hold of it and said, oh, we want to talk about mental health. We want you there. We want you there. And it continues to just spiral out of control. It's amazing.
Unfortunately, I think it's somewhat human nature that it takes an event like what happened sometimes to create the urgency behind a cause or the leaders that it's created. And we know Gabbie and you two are not the only leaders within Sophie's squad. And so if there's other people, you've mentioned a few of them that need to be recognized, this would be a good time to do it. Gabbie's obviously the one that we see championing Sophie's squad throughout the year. But for her specifically, or maybe for the others too, like how impressive, and we have to be careful, I guess, of the way we phrase this, but the transformation, because it would have been really easy, I think, for Gabbie to process this herself, come back to school and focus on the rest of her career at UMD, the rest of her life, and be kind of on the outside looking in on something like Sophie's squad. But since she's come back for that school year and that hockey season following Sophie's death, it's kind of been all she's wanted to talk about. It's really like pulling teeth to get her to talk about herself. And she's had so many individual and team things going well since she's been back. So we talked earlier about the growth of Gabbie. It feels like that event 2 summers ago was just a huge step forward in her development too, Miki.
Agree 100%. She's always been a humble kid. So she is a hard person to talk about herself and her accolades and that kind of stuff. But I think that her tie to that family and knowing Sophie so well and Rachel and Amy and Henry, I think she just felt, and knowing that she had some struggles, she's like, this can't happen anymore. What more can we do? I think that passion, you're right. It could have been easy for her to say, okay, they got things going. You know what? I am going to focus on hockey. But she just and she's said it before, I found this passion that I didn't know I had inside of me for this, that I want to help others. I want people to know it's okay to not be okay. We don't want this to happen again. And I think a big portion of that was her connection with the Wellens.
How many people are now involved with Sophie's squad? What was that original group, and how big is this organization grown in? Man, you're not even 2 years old yet.
Right. So I think our first official meeting we had, I was actually looking back at some of my meeting minutes because I'm kind of the anal person. I was the secretary. I keep track of all that stuff, right? So our first meeting, we had like 15 people, and then we defined ourselves as having a board. So we had a board of 5 at that time, and then the rest were considered committee members. And then last spring, we reorganized ourselves with the help of, actually, Christy Norton helped us get some help from United Healthcare, United Health Group. Anyway, they had some people there that helped us with our 1 year, 3 year, 5 year vision and kind of help us reorganize. We had some ideas ourselves. And so then we moved into a board we have 8 board members now, and we have like 7 different pillars and committees. And then they have committee members. I'm in charge of I'm the director of volunteers. I have a list of 138 people that have signed up to help in some way, shape, or form. We only have probably about 20 active volunteers, 20 to 30 active, but I can send something out to 130 people. Like we have an event coming up for the Hockey Expo. I just emailed it out to 130 people last night saying, hey, we need help for this, that, or the other. So I would say immediate, we've got probably our 8 board members plus another handful of 10 people on those committees that are really putting in all the guts and behind the scenes hours. And then we've got our far-reaching volunteers that'll help in any way, come to the garage and pack some bags, or help us get the trailer ready for the next event. So yeah, it's really exploded. People want to help. They really do.
We've heard Gabbie talk about and you guys have talked about the impact that Sophie's squad has had on her and teammates and young hockey players. You see, there's this overwhelming. Gabbie talked about it early on the podcast this season. At that time you guys were struggling to find volunteers for some events, and then you guys had the hockey hits back at Amsoil Arena. And Miki, you were telling me how excited that you actually got to watch Gabbie play instead of having to volunteer. The growth of this organization has been huge. But the question that I wanted to ask was, we've seen it have an impact on young hockey players and young people, but what kind of impact have you seen this organization have on parents? I'm curious to hear that perspective from the two of you, because both of you must be meeting a lot of parents and talking with parents as well, at these hockey hits back events and such.
You want to take that one first, dear?
Yeah, it's that's kind of a tough one. We're not really focused at this point anyways, but yeah, the parents are involved a lot because they're around it. You get parents coming up to you at these hockey hits back events and just saying how proud they are of what we're doing, for the most part, for their child and their team that we're doing this for. And it's just, and we need more of it, right? We've just scratched the surface as far as I'm concerned. And these kids, and even the parents, even anybody that struggles with mental health, it's okay not to be okay. We've got to get that word out there even more. Again, like I said, we've just scratched the surface of this, and there are a lot of parents out there that love what we're doing, support what we're doing, and want to continue to help us grow and get bigger and better. So yeah, there's a lot of people out there that love what we're doing and want to see that message out there even louder.
And I'll add to that. I think that, yes, we've helped the youth, we've helped the college athletes, but yes, helping those parents as well. I think that it's opened the door for many, and many have told us it's made it easier to talk to their kids, or maybe even to talk to their booster clubs or to their coaches to say, okay, what else can you do for these kids? There's so many organizations out there that they can bring in to help do mental health discussions, those kinds of things. And to say what Terry said, we've scratched the surface on providing educational resources. We have all kinds of handouts. We have a pamphlet now specifically for parents on what are the things to look for. How do you start a conversation with your student athlete? Those kinds of things. So we're starting to provide things for parents. But I will say, like you said, Matt, at these Hockey Hits Back events, the parents that come up and talk to us either tell us their story or tell us their student athlete's story, or just ask for, hey, where do you think we could go to help with this? Or do you have ideas on that? It's just opened up conversations, and that for our first 2 years, that's all we wanted to do. Get those conversations going. And now we're starting to get a lot of hockey parents who are in the mental health professional field, and they're reaching out saying, oh my gosh, you guys are doing great stuff. What can we do to help? Or, hey, do you want to bounce some ideas off us? Like, we'll have our educational resources, we'll bounce off them. But they're saying, because we're like, what more can we do? And they're saying, you're doing everything right now that the mental health professionals need you to do. Get the conversation started. It's a stepping stone from where we were 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's huge. And so I think it's been a huge impact to open those conversations with parents, open their eyes a little bit too.
It's maybe not the primary message of the organization, but what I think it has become a fairly natural side message for Sophie's squad is that hockey is a game, right? And it shouldn't be taken maybe as seriously as it sometimes is, especially at the youth levels. Have you noticed, even in Gabbie, I think that the past 2 years, and you guys can probably speak to this more closely as her parents than we can as media members, but I think Matt and I would both agree that we've seen more joy from Gabbie in the last 2 years playing at UMD than we did in the first 3 years of her career. Now, winning helps a lot, and they've been very successful as a team, but I think she herself has viewed hockey, much like you talked about in Boston right after Sophie's death, as kind of a healing thing, as something that's fun and that she gets to do and doesn't have to do. Have you noticed that being kind of an offshoot message of Sophie's squad as a whole?
Yeah, I think for sure. I think with that being out there, she's realized that she opened up herself to be vulnerable, that she can now talk to people, whether it's me, her mom, a student, a teammate, anyone. And I think with that, it's a great point. I think with that, it just made her a better person. It's not all trapped up inside, if you will, if that makes sense. So she's able to speak and tell people how she's feeling. And in that process, the people that she was afraid to tell, that she's telling it to, she's realizing it's okay. People are listening. It's okay not to be okay. And I think that's the happy piece with her. And not only that, she found that she can take that movement and make other people happy.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Terry, and Zach, what you said as well. She seemed to show more joy. I mean, she has obviously loved playing hockey all her life, and she's always said in any interview, it's always her release from whatever might be bugging her. She can always just go out on the hockey rink, and it's, it's going to be a release for her. But of course, you get to the college ranks, it's obviously a lot more competitive. Yeah, and she's one of the most competitive people I know. Not to say that she's not still competitive, but yeah, I agree 100% that she has shown more joy or is enjoying it more. And I think it is exactly to your point of what happened to Sophie 2 years ago, that it is much more than a game. And I'm going to enjoy every moment of this that I have. And I would say to the events that we've held, one of the big ones, the Hockey Day, we kind of went over and above on that one. And it was more, not really a pilot. We had the time to do it, but what we want to do with more future events is really spent a lot of time with those kids, both teams together, doing things, working with a mental health speaker. They did team building activities together as teams to things they brought back to their schools. And for them to know that, yep, we're going to duke it out on the ice arena on Hockey Day, but it's, their message was, it's more than a game. We're playing more than a game. It's a game. It's fun. But outside of this, there's so much more. Be kind. It's okay to not be okay. It's the bigger picture.
All right. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more with Miki and Terry Hughes. You're listening to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health.
Hello, Northlanders. I'm Wyatt Buckner, and we have something special coming your way. A new weekly podcast titled Northlandia, a place to bring your curiosity, because there you will find curiosities. Whether it's the true story of Ely's band of mushers, or a look inside Duluth's teeny tiniest store, we celebrate the region's distinctive people, places, and history. Each week, I'll be joined by my fellow reporters who share the unique and fascinating stories that they discover while exploring the Northland. You'll be able to find episodes of Northlandia starting in March on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Join us along this journey and discover the extraordinary stories that you just might miss if you're not in the right place at the right time, ready to step off the beaten path with no rush to return in Northlandia.
Hi, I'm Maria Lockwood, a reporter with the Superior Telegram. Explore Superior and Douglas County history with me on Archive Dive, a monthly podcast available at superiortelegram.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome back to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. They're proud to be the team physicians for the UMD Bulldogs and provide sports medicine care to more than 25,000 student athletes in the community to ensure they can compete at the highest level while protecting their long-term health and athletic futures. Thanks to Essentia Health for their support of the Bulldog Insider Podcast. I'm Matt Wellens, joined by my co-host Zach Schneider and our guests Miki and Terry Hughes. Got a few more minutes left here. We're going to do some quick hits to close this off. It's rare we get parents on the podcast. Zach and I have always wanted to do this more, get more parents on the podcast. So we're going to get the parental perspective on a few questions we always ask student athletes. As parents, what's your favorite road trip in the WCHA?
I'll leave that one to Miki because she leaves me at home.
Trips.
She don't even let me show up. So she makes me stay home and feed the fish and the cat, the dog, and make sure the dishes are done. So I have not been to Ohio. I have not been to Wisconsin, and I have not been to Bemidji. So Miki, I think this little dance floor is all yours.
Boy, I don't even know. I guess maybe Ohio. Honestly, we have such a great group of parents. Any road trip is fun because we all stay at the same hotel. We pregame. I guess Ohio, maybe.
Sometimes I think the parents of Division I college hockey players are more in college than the hockey players.
Right. You're not wrong.
Zach and I have been between the men's and women's program. We've had a few beverages with hockey parents over the years when we're on the road. What's your guys' go-to spot in Duluth here when you're in Duluth on game weekends?
Well, we stay at Ficker's. So all the parents stay at Ficker's. So that's our go-to. And we usually hang at the brew house or Lindo's. Those are our quick go-tos just because we're all there.
Terry, that sounds like a good spot. I'm all about staying at a brewery for a weekend.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. 5 years that I've been with Gabbie and the Bulldogs family, I've stayed in Duluth 3 times in 5 years. That's it. I drive up and back every Friday and Saturday. Again, my wife makes me go home and take care of everything. So we've yet have gone toe to toe over this yet, but when the last whistle blows, she's going to hear it from me.
She's going to be campaigning for Gabbie to have a 6th year.
Right? What can I do, guys? Help me out.
As parents, what has it meant? What has it meant for Gabbie to have this extra season of college eligibility after everything her and her classmates had to go through with the pandemic and such?
I just think it's great for her as an individual, but I think it's just for me, it's phenomenal for girls hockey. I wish they could play a little bit more than what they do. There's so many platforms out there for the boys hockey to get involved with after college. There's really not a lot of platforms, if hardly any, for the girls. So I think it's huge for any girl to be able to play that 5th year. And I wish they could all do it, but that's not an option. But it's been awesome. She's enjoyed it. We've enjoyed it. I think we're all going to cry when it's over. So it's been phenomenal.
Miki, how about you? What's it meant besides having the extra road trips and fun weekends in Duluth here?
Well, I think, for Gabbie, obviously, right, she gets to keep playing the game that she loves. And I think all those seniors are saying the same thing. We get to spend another year with our best friends, right, and creating more memories. And so I think maybe also a different mindset that, another opportunity at that national championship that they didn't, get. So I think a total blessing and creating more memories. And then from the education perspective, I mean, she's going to walk away with a master's of education. Like, good for her. She can step out. All she has left for student teaching. So another blessing there.
Last question here. What advice would you give parents of prospective student athletes who are going through the recruiting process today? Your daughter's gone through the recruiting process twice after North Dakota folded its program.
I guess my advice would be do your research and make sure you're going to a school for the school, not for the hockey, and make sure that you're keeping your eyes open to all the different options, because a lot of kids can have tunnel vision that this was always my dream or whatever it might be. I would just say parents, help your kids keep their mind open, options open, explore everything, and do all your research and enjoy it while you're going through it. Really enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree with all that as well. Find a school that fits the kind of the education that you want to go into, what you want to accomplish when you're done. That's got to be probably at the forefront. And go to someone that that you feel that really likes you, that loves you, that wants you to go there. So all of that stuff's important for sure.
I would have one thing to add to that. I would say one thing not to do is buy a piece of apparel for every visit that you go on, because you know what? They're going to wear it once, and then once they choose their school, they ain't wearing it again. And we did that. We bought something from every place we went. I'd say don't do that.
All right, we are going to wrap it up there. Thanks so much, Miki and Terry, for joining us on the podcast this week.
Thanks for
Say,
having
can I
us.
have one shout out? I want one shout out to our board members. We couldn't do any of this without them. And behind the scenes, what work those people do is absolutely, absolutely phenomenal. We could not be here or do anything without them. So a shout out to them.
All right. Thanks, guys. You can find the Bulldog Insider Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe and rate us. For more Bulldogs hockey coverage, visit therinklive.com and DuluthNewsTribune.com. For all the TV and streaming info for UMD hockey this weekend, check out the Bulldog Insider newsletter. You can sign up for that at Duluth.com/Bulldog Insider. Thanks a lot to our sponsor, Essentia Health, for their continued support of the Bulldog Insider Podcast. And thanks to all of you for listening. We'll catch you next week.